So thank you everyone for being here to hear me talk about my parenting journey and how I've come to a place of being more mindful and conscious with how I parent. And that's been a process over 6 years now, and it gets better and better. I definitely feel like I'm in a sweet spot right now. But I know that life goes like this, and the same thing with parenting, ups and downs and phases and stages. But I am in a really good place right now for myself, where my nervous system is really grounded and I feel like I can respond well to my children for the most part. And just their ages, they're 7 and 9. I feel like I'm out of the trenches. I feel that anyone who has any children under 5 are in the trenches still. And I've just put a disclaimer here that you're ultimately responsible for your own well-being and the choices that you make. This is discussing my own research, my personal experience, and isn't a substitute for professional advice. A lot of what I talk about is stuff that I've learned from other professionals in this realm, and I've got resources at the end of the slides that can fill you in on further, where to go for further information. If you want a copy of the slideshow at all, just send me an email and I'm happy to send it through to you if you want to refer back other than looking at the video. So we're just going to cover why we want to do this work, how to stop yelling, about control and fear parenting, big feelings on both sides, because even though we're adults, we can still be very emotionally immature. And so we're trying to then parent our children who are emotionally immature because they're children and are learning, and it just doesn't work very well. Boundaries, so boundaries for ourselves, for our children as individuals as well, especially around their physical being. Communication, nice clear communication and getting your children to communicate better. Sibling interactions, co-parenting and step parenting if you're not with the parent of your children. A little bit about something that I think is helpful for preparation for teen years, play and calmness and fun, because that's what we want the base of our life as a parent to be. Nurturing relationships, nervous system regulation, so that's that grounding, soothing, self-soothing in healthy ways. Nourishing of all of our family members, like how do we fill our cups, every single one of us in the family. Reassurance and repair and connection as being at the foundation of, really having a strong and deep connection with our children. And a little bit about human design and astrology, because it does actually help inform and improve parenting, because you have a level of understanding then of why your children are the way they are. Even if this is something that's maybe challenging or new to you to think about, it's worth looking into, because you may be quite pleasantly surprised, and it could just be another thing to add into your parenting journey to help you out. It's great to be able to understand and accept others, especially our children, because we're stuck with them, right? We've given birth to them, they're our little darlings. And so if we can accept and understand them as an individual, then it's going to make life easier. So just to begin, we're going to do a little practice to ground our nervous systems. And I'll talk a bit more about the nervous system down the track. So just interlink your fingers like this, place them behind your head and tilt your head back just to where it's sort of comfortable, but it will be a little bit awkward too. And then closing your eyes, breathe in and out 3 times deeply into your belly and make the exhale longer than the inhale. Keeping your hands where they are and your eyes closed just as you are, but turning your eyes to look to the right. Do the exact same thing again, breathing in and out 3 times slowly. Then look the eyes over to the left and do the same thing again. Then come up back to earth and stretch your arms up. You'll probably have felt some blood draining down your arms doing that. You can do it longer than 3 breaths if you've got the time, and it's also nice with any sort of parasympathetic rest and digest Zen mode activity or tool that you're doing, that you get at least 1 yawn. That to me is my sign that I'm really activating that mode of my autonomic nervous system, is to get some yawning going. Yeah, so that's just a really nice tool to get you feeling better if you're really frazzled, or if you even know you're going to get into something like a stressful phone call or meeting. You can do this kind of thing beforehand to get yourself grounded, and then again afterwards to reset yourself as well. So my story as a parent, I was, so in my 20s, I would call myself, even my late teens, a toxic woman. I was all about the shame and blame and controlling, especially in intimate relationships. I was always in relationships, well, not all of them, but the 2 that I had in my 20s. So one in my early 20s that ended when I was 21 in the middle of my nursing study. And then the other one was my marriage, which I started at my age of 22. Really yelly, swearing, name calling, no one wanting to back down, like lots of ego, lots of pride, and lots of control and fear. And it wasn't very nice, but that was how it went. Just hurt people getting together and going at it like that in a really unconscious way. Yeah, criticizing, all of that, not very pleasant at all. And then I went on and had children. At the age of 27, I had my first child, and 29, I had my second child, which, if anyone's into astrology, that's around the time of your first Saturn return, which is a tumultuous time of growth in your life. Like, a lot of things will come to a head, and it is an opportunity for growth and change, which I had no idea back then, but now I can see that time for me and how hard it was. So even the way I parented my first baby was very harsh, and much like the parenting of my mother, how she raised me as a baby, leaving my baby to cry. If you've just hopped on, please, can you mute your video? Yeah, so a harsher style even from the get-go with my first baby, of, you know, babies must learn to sleep and we must have a strict routine and you need to put them down once they're fed and stuff. A little bit of crying's okay, this kind of thing. And then by the time I'd had my second baby, things changed a lot. And I had really great support from my best friend, who has always been so conscious, always been so intuitive, and was able to like show me some different resources on how to parent babies in a different way. And it was initially quite confronting for me and different, and you know, because it was all about attachment and holding your baby more and not letting them cry and being very attentive to their needs, and that, you know, babies weren't being naughty or bad by like crying or waking you or whatever. And yeah, I was opened up to a whole new world, and it brought a lot of guilt up, because when you start reading this sort of content, you think, oh, like, look at what I've done or what I'm doing, and I feel dreadful and all this kind of thing. But that's not helpful. It's like with any new thing you learn, you have to just forgive yourself for what you didn't know, and forgive yourself and grow and change with that new information. That's the only way forward. So you do have to really be good at practicing letting go of guilt, because there's a lot of that in motherhood anyway. And we're all doing the best with what we know, and we can always do better. There's always room for improvement as well. So my parenting was based on blame and shame with my little ones. My biggest trigger with little ones, and I'm talking like, 1 and 3 or something like that, was spillages or breakages would make me fly off the handle. And I can see now that was like the way my mum was. Like spilling things or breaking things was like this huge drama, and I was repeating that pattern. And so it's we'll talk more about these things as we go on, but blame and shame, where it's like, why did you do this, as if they like intentionally did something when it's an accident. And yeah, it doesn't make you feel very good. I was a yeller as well. I would yell at my babies and toddlers. I felt completely out of control. For me, it wasn't even just anger. It was actually pure rage, where I would go 0 to 100 in seconds and just see red, basically blank out and be quite detached and very out of control in myself, completely out of control, just rage, blind rage, horrible, absolutely horrible feeling to experience. And that was due to childhood trauma. My own childhood trauma was centered around a narcissistic and abusive stepfather that I grew up with, my mum's second husband. And a lot of stuff I hadn't talked to anyone about. And I got to a point, I think I was 30 years old, where I was like, right, I can't keep living like this. And at that point, I was on a journey to healing my physical well-being, because after my second baby, my physical health had crashed and burned. But at the same time, I was seeking help for my emotional and psychological traumas and the rage and anger problem I had, and the toxicity within my relationship, within my marriage. And I went to a counselor, an incredible counselor who I recommend to all of my clients, to the point where she gives me a free session now and then, which is really lovely. But yeah, I absolutely just went through leaps and bounds with her. I guess it was 1.5 sessions with me turning up there so ready to offload this hurt and this heaviness. And I felt like a new woman. That's how quick it can be when you are super ready to just turn up and put it all out there and fast track that healing process. If you hold back any of the painful, hurtful, vulnerable things that are ruminating, because a lot of the stuff is like anything that I think anything that pops up continuously is like some kind of trauma that needs dealing with, even if you might downplay it and be like, oh, it's not actually trauma. Well, trauma doesn't have to be anything huge that happens to us. It can be it's from our perspective, what has harmed us enough to change our patterns and our behaviors in our present day life, things that are interrupting and holding us back and that kind of thing in our present day life. So that was huge, going and doing that. That was like a big pivotal point in my growth, and I had already started changing my parenting, but that helped me with that underlying anger and rage that I had. And then it was just a mindfulness and a practice ongoing to learn how to regulate my nervous system, which I didn't know a lot about then either, but more about just being mindful and learning to take a pause in every experience. And I had a mantra, which I'm going to talk about, and I would zoom out and see the bigger picture of things. And yeah, like a lot of little things that helped me, which we'll discuss further on. And a lot of us are parenting how we were parented. It's just the way it goes. I do believe, even if you're unconscious about this and you're not putting the work in and you're not here on in a class learning about this kind of stuff, that you can still, each generation can still do better. Like when I think back of the generations I've come from, I feel like there's been an improvement somewhat, but just not enough to make huge, wonderful changes for the future generations. So yeah, thinking about how you're parented is a big one, and I could see a lot of this stuff repeating, and I didn't want to repeat it as much as I had a really beautiful, loving, calm mother for the most part. When she did it, when things got hard, she really flew off the handle. So like I don't think I had a overly terrible childhood, but there were definitely things there that have caused issues for me into my adulthood. And also having a dad who is emotionally shut down and just like emotional abandonment as well as physical abandonment, where he left when I was 12 or 13 to live in Nelson when I lived in Timaru. So it's a long way away, but also I can now realize that he's actually never been emotionally available to me at all. He only told me he loved me like a year or two ago, because my brother and I basically decided that we'd just keep saying it to him on the phone every time before we said goodbye until he said it back, and he did eventually. So yeah, it's just all these little things contribute to how we show up in the world, and being mindful of them, being aware of them, and then taking the steps to heal them just makes huge improvements on you as an individual, in your intimate relationships, and as a parent. And we can even feel very unsafe in utero. So depending on what's going on at the time for the pregnant woman, you can end up making that fetus and then your baby feel unsafe from the get-go. And I believe that's what happened with my children, especially I think my son, and then with me having serious health issues in Charlotte, who had colic, who cried and cried and cried and cried for her first 6 months. There was a huge disconnection made between my son and I. So he was just like on the out. He was like an afterthought, and he knew that and felt that deeply at 2 years old. And the way he behaved and all of that was a result of this disconnection between mother and son. And it was purely because I was struggling so bad with my health and with this baby that just cried with colic and had to sleep on me, and my husband was on the couch, and like it was just like really hard time of life. But the good news is that you can always repair a disconnection. And children are so forgiving and so incredible. And I was talking to Jimmy about this the other day when I was doing this slideshow and stuff, and he says he doesn't remember Angry Mum, which is cool, but I still think there could be residual stuff there for him to work on maybe when he's an adult. I don't know. You just don't know how people take things. Everybody's different, but repairing our connection and our relationship was so wonderful, because the guilt I held around that when I realized what was going on and that disconnect was horrible. But like I say, children are so resilient, and if you're going to put the work in, you can easily repair any kind of disconnect that you feel you might have with your children. So why do this work? We can break those harmful or unhelpful generational patterns that on a huge scale of severity, I guess, and seriousness. Addictions and that kind of thing are generational patterns because of behaviors within the home. Usually it's not a genetic thing. So yeah, we can break that. We can choose to make a difference for the better, for future generations, and we can do better than the last. And we're not criticizing or being horrible by saying that our parents did X, Y, or Z and it wasn't ideal. They only knew what they knew at the time, and they were doing the best with what they knew. So we send compassion. We send compassion and forgiveness, mostly for ourselves, even if it's something quite horrendous that's gone on. The forgiveness and the letting go is for yourself. It doesn't mean you condone any poor behaviors that happened to you as a child, or any abuse or anything like that, but just being able to forgive and let go and detach and move forward in your life is super helpful. And if we are parenting in this way of with compassion and empathy and consciousness, then we create more compassionate and grounded humans, which then uplifts humanity as a whole. So there's a ripple effect of doing this work as a parent. So yeah, I just invite you to explore your own upbringing, how you were parented, and look at how you are now parenting and what things might be quite similar to how you were parented that you'd like to change. And also look into perhaps doing some inner child healing, because when we're a child, everything's so out of our control. We literally are very vulnerable, and relying so heavily on our caregivers to do everything for us, to keep us safe and fed and warm and all of those things. And so, but now in our adulthood, we can actually do inner child healing and go back to those places of harm or hurt, or they might even not be super significant, but they could pop up for you by doing maybe an inner child meditation practice. There are lots on YouTube that you could give a go with. I've done a few of them. I think I've done Nicole LaPera's, she's the holistic psychologist, her one on YouTube. But also I've recently done a really wonderful inner child healing with Rachel from Level Up Coaching. She does these breakthrough sessions and gets you into like a meditative, hypnotic kind of state and gets you into these inner child healing pathways, which I found super helpful as well. So just a couple of things you could look at. Yeah, so we are all human and we do make mistakes, and that's okay. Like, forgiveness for ourselves and letting go of guilt is huge. We cannot be perfect every single day of our lives. Even with consciousness, things happen, circumstantial stuff, tiredness, financial stress, whatever it might be, we make mistakes. But we want to make sure that we rectify and repair as soon as possible. And that's really great role modeling for our children to choose to do better over and over again. Showing them that even though things can get a bit out of control and we can feel really bad about it, that we can always come back together and apologize and reconnect. So one of the biggest things I'll say is don't take it personally with your kids. You're always going to cop at the worst. You really are. You are their safe place, and that's actually a good thing. If you're copping at the worst, it means they trust you, they love you, and they feel safe with you. So especially when they come back from like kindy or school, or maybe the other parent's house, if you're co-parenting is such a lovely term, but shit, reality for some of it's not like that. They will unpack their emotional backpack. So they'll first turn up, first interaction with you, and they might start making demands. They might start crying, tantruming, whatever it is, just being difficult in their behavior and making it really hard for you from the get-go of reuniting. And yeah, that's really, really difficult, but don't take it personally, and just try and keep in mind that I am a special person to them, for them to be able to feel that safe to let all of this go here at home and in my presence. And you won't raise assholes by letting go of controlling parenting methods. One thing that I worried about as well was like, what is this? Like, is this some airy fairy parenting thing? Like, am I not then going to tell them what they should and shouldn't be doing and that kind of thing? But it's not that. It's like being calm and grounded and firm, and still having the boundaries and still having consequences for them not following through as well when needed. I don't do that as often these days. Like I say, I'm in quite a sweet spot. But Charlotte, my daughter, our journey has been the most challenging. So even sometimes I've tried to do some kind of consequence and it's really not worked. And yeah, it can be really, really challenging with certain children like that are really headstrong. But yeah, I think I used to fear that I was going to raise these horrible adults, and I care so much. I care so much as a parent, I care so much as a mother, and I really want to grow children into adults that are really decent humans, that can think independently and critically for themselves and be their truest selves. And I think I thought initially, well, are they just going to do as they please and I'm not actually going to have boundaries in place? Like, how do I strike a balance, basically? Because I've been super harsh and super angry, and then I think I definitely swung the other way a bit for a while, where I was too lenient, too soft, too gentle. So it's finding that place in the middle that works for you. and leading with compassion and imagining being in their shoes. They're just small people that need to be taught how to show up in the world emotionally and what is okay and not okay. So we are their leader in that respect, which is a huge job. But most of all, I mean, if you're here and you're listening to this and you're partaking in this class, you need to trust that they are going to turn out just fine. Just worrying about the future and what if is just such a waste of energy. It's a lot of it is out of our hands, but what we're going to do is every day we're going to show up as the best version of ourselves as mum or dad, and trust that is enough. And even if it's not perfect, it's enough, and they're going to be just fine. Don't want to waste that energy on things in the future that may never happen, and in fact, probably 99% unlikely to happen. Play is an amazing thing to use to prevent epic tantrums and emotional volatility and that kind of thing. I will admit, play doesn't come easily to me, and I think that's also to do with how I was parented. I didn't have playful parents, had serious parents, and was mostly raised by my mum, and she was really busy working and things, and so it was like very, we've got to do this, we've got to do that, task focused, and there wasn't, she was always on her feet and doing, she never took time to pause, and that's how I am as well, although getting much, much better and learning to let go and play and do the things that I enjoy, and also to harness my inner child and do things that I want to do that maybe I didn't get to do as a child, like buying Sylvanian families toys. I've got like the cute little husky puppies, which I love so much. Jumping on the trampoline. I never owned a trampoline growing up, and I always wanted one, so I got a trampoline at the start of the year, and I enjoy that with the kids. Certain card games I really enjoy. So if they want to play with me, I basically choose what to play because I want to make it fun for me too, and my kind of favorite things. But I will branch out and do what they want as well on occasion. But that one-to-one time, especially if you can get it separately, way harder when you've got more than one child, but if you can do it separately, one-to-one, 10 minutes each, that's perfect. But otherwise, sitting down together and playing a game with however many children you've got there, like all together, absolutely fine, and a great way to connect and just give them that undivided attention. Or it might not be play-based, it might be hopping in the bath together. It might be going for a walk together. My son loves walking and talking. He will talk non-stop the entire walk, and he won't want to stop walking because it means stopping talking. So that's really nice too. So just finding what works best for your child as well, where they feel like they're really getting that undivided attention. I'd leave my phone at home when we go for a walk, and it's just listening and trying to pretend at times like I know what they're talking about, because Pokemon goes like, some of it I'm like, whoa, I don't even know what you're talking about there, but good for you. It's great to have passionate children. And it's especially good straight after kindy or school to have nothing on, like, so no distractions, not be on your phone when they turn up or when you pick them up. Here, I'm just talking from my experience, they get dropped off on the bus, so I try to not be sitting at my computer or not be on my phone or whatever, and they show up, and hugs, kisses, reconnection in that physical sense with affection, and then having some food or playing a game or going for a walk or whatever it might be. And a big one that helped heaps with my little ones, we don't do it as much now, but my children are quite physical in their play. They always have been. When Jimmy was probably 3 and Charlotte 1, we used to do this thing called the pushing game, and it really discharges those emotions that lead to big tantrums. And this comes from Dr. Laura Markham's book, which I highly recommend. It's called The Peaceful Parent, Happy Child or something. I've got it in the resources at the end, and there's a siblings one too. So I bought both of those books, and they were probably my big learning experiences on this path after getting, like, in conjunction with getting the therapy and reading those books. That changed how I parented quite a lot. And the physical roughhousing is great because, yeah, you're discharging that pent up energy and emotions that are stuck inside. And I did the pushing game, which is just something we made up where I'll be on high knees at the end of one room, and they just basically charge at you and bulldoze you over, and you just roll around and rough up each other and laugh and that kind of thing. It helps heaps. But I haven't done much of it lately, but they still really love getting down on the ground with me, even just if I like squash them and stuff. I think it's great. Control and fear-based parenting is around threats. So threats and punishment lead to feelings of shame in children. They can lead to insecurity. And I typically will give one warning with when I parent, and have to be very conscious that it is one warning over time. Like I do remember when I was very tired and I'd left my ex-husband and I was very, very stressed, that I would just give too many chances, basically, and it's really bad for a child like Charlotte in particular, who pushes the boundaries anyway. So yeah, if consequences are something that you want to go with, I mean, I'm just talking from my experience, I would do things like, for example, last year at Halloween, Charlotte was acting up a lot and we were going out to a Halloween event. It's like a community event thing. And I just said to her, look, she was really diabolical that day. And I said, I'm not buying you any candy floss. I was going to get both of the kids candy floss because I knew it was there. And Jimmy got the candy floss and she didn't, and she remembers it. It was horrific at the time when she didn't get it and he did, like absolutely horrific. We ended up leaving, but she remembers now, and it was like a good example of, if you're not going to listen and be kind and not hit your mother when you're having one of these outbursts, then you are going to miss out on nice things. So that is something that I feel comfortable doing, and it's up to you what you feel comfortable doing. I don't see that as a threat. I feel like that's quite fair. And the way I say it as well matters. So how you put it across, not if you don't, da, 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 I'm going to leave you behind. If you don't, da, 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 this is going to happen, or whatever. It's not delivered in that way. So your delivery and your words have a lot of power. Blame, oh my gosh, shame and blame was like such a feature of my childhood. So it's a put down used to control, can lead to children feeling rejected and guilty, manipulated. It's like, it's your fault, XYZ. If you hadn't done such and such, this never would have happened, like that whole blaming thing. It's quite common in our society and can be really hard to deal with, and can make you feel really shitty. And there was a heap of that in my marriage as well. And my ex-husband to this day is hugely blame and shame. Everything's my fault, Makes him feel good, maybe. I don't know. I'm so strong in myself that it's like water off a duck's back, because I know the truth and I know who I am as a person. So this kind of stuff doesn't get to me anymore. But it's just sad that some people get really stuck on that blame and shame game. Shame, making them feel bad about themselves. It can impact self-esteem and worthiness, create fear of judgment, and also create people pleasing into adulthood. And it's an unmotivating thing to use anyway. So I at times can kind of slip back to this, not to this extreme, but I will notice and I'll be like, oh, that was actually quite shaming, like a shaming way to speak. So it's like, what's wrong with you? Why did you do that? You should know better. You naughty boy. That's so naughty. Why would you do that? That kind of stuff. And then physical violence, never okay. If you're physically violent to another adult, you're going to get in shit. The police are going to be involved, and it's abuse. It's assault, physical assault. So we don't want to use physical violence on our kids. I have in the past, when I was out of control and ragey. I have definitely smacked my children. And it feels horrible afterwards, immediately afterwards. If you've ever smacked your child, you feel like absolute shit, and they look at you like you're a monster, and that does create a detachment. Like every time you use, especially physical violence with children, you're detaching. So your connection isn't getting closer, it's getting further away, and that's fear-based parenting. They learn to behave because they fear the smack or whatever it is. But when I used to get really out of control, I would use that. And I was smacked as a child too. I haven't mentioned that, but smacking was very standard, a wooden spoon, that kind of thing. And more so my mum. My dad's quite a soft man, so he's never like laid a finger on me like that, but he just doesn't do anything really. Has never really been right in there as a parent. So that's that. Anger and rage. To me, it's two different things. Like anger is an emotion that we have, like it's a normal emotion like any other, and it should be expressed, but we need to express it in a way that we're not taking it out on someone that we love, and we're not directing it or personalizing it or anything. So expressing anger just out in the open and naming it for what it is, especially around your children, can be really helpful, and using helpful ways to express it or get it out of your system, like yelling. And like if no one's here, I'll yell in the shower and imagine all the heavy energy like going down the drain. And swear, I'll yell and swear in the shower. If you live really remotely or rurally, can you like go and yell into a pond or a stream and let it take all that heavy energy away? Into a pillow, if yelling's your thing, or otherwise like hitting, punching a boxing bag, or going for a run and really discharging energy. Crying and laughing as well can bring you back into equilibrium in your nervous system, where you are able to get back into that Zen mode as well. And prioritizing taking care of yourself is a good preventative, making sure you get into that parasympathetic rest and digest mode of the autonomic nervous system as often as you can. Like every day, I say have a practice that brings you down so that you're as grounded as you can be, so that you can take on more, or when shit happens, you have a good solid foundation there and you're not just completely flying off the handle first thing, and you can actually see it for what it is, zoom out and not react. Rage, I feel, is like more serious. I feel like there's definitely trauma behind that, and that you like there can be like such a lack of control and a detachment thing happening, and that a talk therapist or other kind of therapy might help a lot. Like hypnotherapy can be really good for some people, or body work. There's all kinds of ways to help you heal from these traumas. You just have to find the thing that works best for you. But anger, it's an emotion that we experience. Don't suppress it. It's something that I have realized that I've swung the other way again. So like I was really rage-filled and out of control, and then I came right, but then I was suppressing my anger. Whereas now I can be like, oh, I'm feeling so mad, and express just out in the open, not directing at anyone, and then the children know, okay, well, it's all right to be angry, and this is how I take care of that anger as well. Stopping yelling is so important and so hard. So it's an expression of anger, but it does not actually work as far as modifying a child's behavior. They just block it out, and it just doesn't work. A whole lot of noise in the household for no gain. And it makes them feel unsafe and insecure. They could even get aggressive, have more of a tendency to be aggressive. And it just makes you feel really bad yelling at your children. So daily soothing. So I've talked about this autonomic nervous system. It's a unconscious system in the body, and it has 3 branches, but the 2 main branches that people talk about is parasympathetic, which is your rest, digest, Zen mode, as I like to call it, and then your sympathetic, which is your fight, flight, freeze. And we get very easily stuck in the fight, flight, freeze these days. And that's a mechanism to keep us safe back when we could have faced some kind of major threat to our lives, like, I don't know, a tiger or a lion or something like that. And we had to make a choice to save our lives and keep humanity going. And now we have all these perceived threats in life that still make that system activated when it's not a real threat to life. It's just something that our body thinks is. And so we want to get out of that fight, flight, freeze and into rest and digest Zen mode as much as we can. And having something daily to do that is really important for becoming a calmer parent and a calmer person in general. So we've some of this stuff will repeat because it's so important to me. Don't take anything they say or do personally. It's not a personal attack. They don't even have that level of, when children are younger, especially. I mean, they might wind you up as they get older for sure, but when they're younger, just let it go. And even when they're older, I'm just not even going to take the bait. I've already decided I'm not taking the bait. Respond or react. You have the choice in every situation of conflict, whether you respond from a place of compassion and love, or whether you react from your emotions just being volatile, like anger or frustration or whatever it is. If you have no reaction, you have no drama, and you're cultivating peace. And then taking a pause and counting to 10 was really helpful for me, because I was like 0 to 100. I had to really practice this, where I'd just be like, come back into my body and be like, it's okay. This is not an emergency. Like I've got the having a mantra. This is not an emergency. It's a spillage, say, big trigger for me. Someone spilled a drink. And I would just be, this is not an emergency, taking that pause, counting to 10, and I would voice how I was feeling and what I was going to do. So if I couldn't stay present in the situation, I would say, I'm feeling really mad and I'm just going to have to leave for a little bit until I cool off, and I'll be back as soon as possible. And even telling them where you're going or whatever. If you're just going to say, I'm just going to walk out to the letterbox and back, I just need to cool off a bit. I'm feeling really mad and I don't want to, yell or whatever it is. I need to diffuse it, And what I do is I still vocalize loudly, because I'm quite a vocal person, and it's probably my Aries moon. In my astrology, Aries are really fiery and bold, and they will blow up and then they'll forget like it even happened. So that's what they're known for, is they would be very expressive vocally and quite yelly, and they get over things as quickly as it happened. They don't hold grudges or anything. It's like, move on. Let's just, So when I found out that I had that Aries moon, it helped me a lot in understanding my outbursts and my temper and things. So I'll vocalize loudly. If someone spills something, I'll go, oopsie, like quite loud. And that just helps me to deal with it better. And then I'll say, let's clean up, and just focus on the cleanup and everything, and that accidents happen. And it's got to a place now that, they don't feel bad at all for spilling things. They know it happens, and they know that we just get on and clean it up. And even with material items and stuff, yes, it's gutting when children break something. But it's not the end of the world. Like, what really matters is us being healthy and loved and together as a family. Like, nothing can replace that love in a family, and you as a human. That's so special and so irreplaceable, whereas items are just items. They're material items, and yes, sometimes it really sucks if they're expensive or whatever it is, but they're just physical material items, and they are replaceable in most circumstances, even if it costs you a bundle to do. And like I say, if you need to remove yourself from the room or the house and it's safe to do that, to self-soothe, it's better than staying and yelling. So it's just about making them aware of what you're doing. I'm feeling really angry and out of control right now. I know the best thing to do for me is to go for a walk up the driveway. I'll come back as soon as I'm feeling more settled in myself. And find yourself a mantra that works, because that helped a lot for me. Helped me zoom out and look at the bigger picture and be like, no one's died. Repair, repair, repair. Yeah. So this is huge, because teaching our children to apologize as quickly as possible and to move forward and reconnect and that kind of thing, and not hold grudges, understand that we all make mistakes and that's okay. Like, there's really great life stuff to learn. So if you've yelled or lost the plot or whatever it is, apologize to them after the fact, when everything's simmered down. So you don't, when things get really heated, it's not the time to try and break through with anyone and get any kind of learning or lessons in there or anything like that, or any understanding. You want to wait till a later time when everything's calm to do that kind of stuff. And that's when you can discuss the reasons behind why you lashed out or why you yelled, and and just have their understanding that yes, we're all human and sometimes these things happen, when things are really tough for us, when we're stressed, whatever it is, tired. Getting that understanding from them helps them build empathy for others as they grow up into adults as well. So I'd say something like, I'm sorry, I swore at you. Sometimes my big feelings get away on me. I'm feeling really tired and stressed at the moment, and I know I shouldn't have taken out on you. I'm going to do better next time. And then you do better next time. Another line that I love to use after we've had a big bust up is, let's start afresh. Helps a lot to just clear the slate and no hard feelings. What's done is done. Leave that in the past. Let's start afresh and continue to do better on our journey. Connecting physically is so important. So cuddles, having a bath together, singing and dancing, like physical touch, just any kind of physical touch, sitting beside each other on the couch, holding hands, watching a movie, whatever it is that works for you, it's really important to do after a bust up. And another line that I say after when we are in this sort of apologizing phase is, even, this is what I'll say to one child in particular, even when you're mad or sad, I still love you. So I used to say this a lot to my son growing up as well, but he's at a point where he's quite awesome at regulating his emotions. My daughter still struggles at times, but it's getting better all the time, which is such a relief, because I just have found her quite unparentable since she was born. She's just really, I just haven't had it sorted with her. I felt very like, what do I do? You know, just really lost. And at times I can still feel really lost with her. So I will just say to her, look, even when you are mad or sad, I still love you. I love you unconditionally, which means that there's nothing that you could do or say that would make me stop loving you. And then you just practice that unconditional love. And now she'll say it to me. She, like, if I've got to a point where I'm really upset or having to go and lie down or whatever it is, she will come up and hug me and say, oh, Mum, even when you're mad or sad, I still love you. It's very cute. And it's good to know that you're getting through to them. Because sometimes parenting, you're just like on this blimmin' hamster wheel or something, and you just feel like you're not getting anywhere, and you feel like you're doing all the right things and you're being conscious, or you're practicing things a certain way and you've made these good changes, but you're like, where's the blimmin' fruit? Where's the, where's the results here? And then boom, result. Or someone else might comment on your children. Your children might go to a friend's house or a family member's or something like that, and they'll say, oh, this is one thing I had the other day. Charlotte said to my daughter, they'd been in the grocers and to get groceries, and she said, aren't you going to help your mum, see if your mum needs help with the bags? This kind of thing. And it's like, oh my gosh, thank goodness. Just these little moments that you get along your parenting journey where you're just like, okay, I think what I'm doing is working for the most part. Calmness for children and just in the household in general, having a calm energy is really reassuring, and it makes children feel loved and accepted, even if they have bad behaviors going on. If they've been naughty, been acting up, they know that they're actually still loved and accepted regardless. They do as we do, so role modeling is like the best thing that you can possibly do. Just do your absolute best to be a wonderful role model by what you say and what you do, for the most part, with that little bit of room for imperfection. Naming how you feel and then what you're going to do to help you feel better and doing that thing is really helpful. And even if you see them as well, I'm going to talk probably about this again, but if you see them feeling a certain way, naming the emotion is really helpful. Increases emotional intelligence and empathy, which is huge. We need as much empathy and compassion in the world as we can get. So I'm feeling mad, I'm going outside because I need to cool off, I don't want to harm anyone, and I'm coming back very soon. Allow their big feelings. So the more grounded you get in yourself and the more control you have over your emotions and groundedness that you have with your nervous system being nice and settled, then you're going to be able to allow their big feelings more. You're not going to be triggered by them, and have you yourself set off, and then there's two people with big feelings getting nowhere, having this conflict, and where are we getting, where's the goodness from it? It's just not the way to go about it. We want to be the role model and the leader and be a safe and sturdy person for them when they're feeling that way. We want to hold space for them. So we need to stop saying things that suppress their emotions too, because mostly children will express via crying, younger children, and tantruming and that kind of thing. So stop that crying, no more crying, there's no need to cry, why are you crying? All of those kinds of things that you'll hear quite often out there in society. Swapping it with, it's so sad when we have to leave Granny's house, or when your drink spills, or whatever it is that's made them feel upset, or it's so frustrating. I used to love using the word frustrating. When something such and such happens, I feel that way when it happens too. So also just having that, like, oh, okay, mum has felt that too. I'm not unique and different or an outcast in any kind of way. I'm like mum. Mum's had this experience, or dad, or whoever it is. Just that reassurance. And then if you want to from there, you can also look at problem solving. How can we problem solve? How can we make this better? What could we do differently next time? But sometimes there's no point in even going down that track. You can literally just name the feeling regarding to whatever's happened and reassure that it's okay to feel that way, or that you've felt that way too, and that can be enough to help diffuse. And it's nice to remember that we are not our emotions are not us. So instead of saying something like, you are so angry all the time, or I am mad, I am sad, you can actually say that you feel sad, I feel mad, you feel, yeah. It just takes it out of that sort of label that you're not actually an angry person, as a person, you're not angry, you feel angry. And feelings come and go, right? That's the other thing to really know, is that none of it sticks around for long. And the more that we can name it to tame it, that's in one of the books I've read, and like process it, then we can move past and it just doesn't stick around. And it's nice to reassure children of that too. Like, you're feeling really angry right now, but that's not going to stick around for long. That feeling, they just come and go. Yeah, so don't get entangled in their big emotions with them. Zoom out to the bigger picture. And this is my favorite one that I was just mentioning about using the word frustration, because sometimes, especially maybe with older children, you could annoy them by labeling an emotion that they might not actually be feeling, whereas frustration is sort of broader, I think, and you can just use that one quite easily. And I'll just say, I can see you're frustrated, or are you feeling frustrated, whatever, and then just letting them know that you're there for them if they need you. And got a bit here about building resilience. So in that sense, I would be, so looking really frustrated doing a task, for example, the seatbelt in the car was a big one for us. I would say, it looks really tricky, and screaming or crying or really hating it at that point, I'll say, it looks really tricky, but you're doing so well persevering with that seatbelt. Can you give it one more good go, and then let me know if you need me to help you? And that helps them, instead of you just jumping in there and doing it for them, because you can see that they're just like losing the plot, allowing them that little opportunity to give it one more good go before you help. And that can just build that resilience and that trust in themselves that they can do things. Found that really helpful. And even when they say things like, I can't do that, you can say, well, you can't do it yet, but with practice you might get really good at it, and we've got to start somewhere. We don't get born as babies and hop up onto our feet and just start walking. We've got to start somewhere and practice to get good at it. If you can possibly not leave them when they're struggling and in a full-blown tantrum, that's the best way to go about it. So if you are feeling pretty grounded in yourself and able to hold space, then you stick around in that space. You don't try and snap them out of it or tell them to stop or whatever it is. You can just name it and say, oh, you're having a really hard time, and I'll be here when you need a hug, so that they know that what they're experiencing is okay. They can let it run its course, and then you'll be there for them to reconnect with that physical comfort afterwards. But if they're trying to hit you, that's a big one for me. Charlotte will still try and hit me or kick me. Then if she gets a chance to stop, and if she doesn't stop, then I will often remove myself because I say I'm not safe here. I don't feel safe with you hitting and kicking me. I'm going to just go for a walk outside and cool off, and leave you to cool off as well. And then again, when they're having like a big tanty about something like leaving Granny's house, I've got here, and you can just say, oh, it's so hard to leave Granny's house because you love it here. You love it so much, but it's time to go, and you'll see her again soon. So it's your choice. You either walk to the car yourself, or I can carry you. So giving two options like that can be really helpful for really headstrong children that are overwhelmed with emotion. I've had to do that a lot, to give the two choices, and the carrying part's not fun because like the banana, I call it banana, when toddlers are like, they just bend backwards and they're like this, and you're trying to put them in their car seat and they're just like a banana with their back bent, and you can't get them in. I've literally like tackled ribs and stuff to try and get them in, and just, it's really not fun getting a tantying child into a car seat at times. And I felt like that was every time that we needed to go somewhere, from when Charlotte was 1 to 5 probably like a long time. It felt like forever trying to get her into a car seat. But just empathizing, acknowledging that they love it so much, but we do have to go. And I even had to do that on the weekend when or in the holidays, when Charlotte was leaving her friend's house, and she started getting very upset and didn't want to leave. And I just had to say, you really love it here. You'll be able to come back another time. You've had such a great time. What a cool thing, but we've got to go now. And she ended up being okay-ish. It was a bit of a meltdown, but we got there in the end. And just letting them know it's okay to feel upset or mad, but that they cannot hurt others when they feel that way. It's not acceptable to hurt anyone else when you're feeling angry, mad, hurt, upset, etc. One thing I do to turn things around when there's like a lot of emotions going on, and defiant kind of behavior, I guess you'd call it, where it's like no, and they're just no, over and over again, not listening, fighting with siblings, whatever it is. I try to be silly and light, and this wasn't natural for me at all. It's definitely something I've had to learn, because I've been such a serious parent, and like, you need to do as you're told, sort of thing. But I've learned to be silly and light with them, and probably one of the first things I'll do is like hang Charlotte upside down by her ankles, or I'll get down on all fours and start being like a grizzly bear, or I'd hop like a frog, and then start like making animal sounds. Talking in gibberish helps heaps too, like just making up a language. They really like that kind of stuff. And just putting on music, that kind of thing. Give that a go. It's not always going to work. It doesn't always work in my experience, but that's like my first port of call now, instead of trying to get into this like butting heads, hard work, fight thing that just is yuck. It's just a yuck energy. And even if it hasn't been doing as she's told, at that time you have a choice to either make it silly and light and try and snap them out of that, or the other. And once you're at the end of this playful time, and of course it's only if you have the time to do it too, but if you get to the end of the silly, playful, light time, they often have been so diffused, and they're like angels again. They will actually listen, and they get on and do their teeth after all, and that sort of thing. So it does work really well for the most part. Only on occasion it won't work here. And it's just so much more fun. And I hope that's the kind of thing that they remember about me too, is that Mum wasn't always like the serious, grouchy kind of person. And then afterwards, once it's all settled and I've discharged by that silliness in the play, and then I've done as they're told, you can actually say why it's so important to listen, and how it's helping Mum out, and that's what we need to do. Sometimes we have to do these things in life, like brush our teeth or eat our dinner or whatever it is. And yes, I know you don't always feel like you want to do it, but this is what we have to do. And it's really important to listen, because I feel really, really good when you listen. It makes mum feel so happy when you do these things to help me out. So I just try and get that buy-in of them like helping and doing a good thing to help mum. And if it's not working, you can, like I say, leave, let them know, hey, this is really stressing me out. I don't want to lose the plot or yell or anything, so I'm just going to go for a walk on the driveway or sit out on the trampoline or whatever it might be, to regulate yourself. And then the boundaries thing, this is definitely something I've struggled with, like I mentioned before, where I was so psycho on one end of the scale, and then I went too far the other way and was a bit soft. And so it's like coming back into the middle of using some boundaries. And lines that I use is, it's not okay to hurt your brother. It's not okay to whatever. So just making it very clear that it's not okay and that won't be tolerated. And I won't let you is another line. So these sort of things are what I've learned from the Laura Markham books as well. And again, it's okay to feel mad, but I won't let you hurt others. It's not okay to hurt others when you feel mad. What else can you do when you feel this way? So figuring out something that they can do that's safe and okay when you feel mad, that's not hurting anyone else, whether that's boxing, a boxing bag, or a teddy, or yelling into their pillow, or getting on their bike, bouncing on the trampoline, whatever it might be, that can help them discharge that angry energy. And yeah, ask them to think about what they could do when they start feeling that way. And like I said before, I will use the missing out on something for poor behavior, and it works, but not super effective. I wouldn't say it's super effective, but it works mostly. And I don't know if it's the right or wrong thing to do, but that's just something that I do use, where if the behavior's been really bad, I will say, this is really not okay, and now we're no longer going to get an ice cream, or you're going to miss out and the others will get the ice cream, or whatever it is that we might have already planned. It's usually something that's already planned, and I'll use it as a warning first, and then I will follow through. And it is very, very sad for that child to miss out. And then teaching about boundaries for themselves, like their own physical boundaries around like hugging or kissing, especially other relatives, that their body is their body and they have autonomy and can use consent. They can say that they don't want to kiss, they don't want to hug to any person. And even within siblings, I feel like my two are quite codependent. They're very like total besties, but they also have respect and boundaries, which is good. In the fact that they will ask each other, can I play with your such and such? And they respect that. And if it's a no, they respect the no. And same around taking turns. They're really respectful around, hey, can I have a turn on that when you're finished? And then they wait for that child to finish, and then they get the turn. And the child using it is usually really obliging too. This is just something I've used for years, and it's just become second nature for them, where they actually don't use it for a long time either, really. They'll be like, oh, yep, quite soon after, they'll give that turn over. So that's been really good. And then in our home, like if a door's closed in the bathroom or anything like that, that you knock and make sure you get the okay before you come in. Same with parents' bedroom door. Better knock and get the okay before you come in. Yeah, so boundaries, great to learn as a child, as opposed to having to learn them as an adult, like myself and many of us. Communication, so getting some good communication going is really important. A lot of children whine, and it really grinds on everyone around that are having to listen to this whining voice. And what I have said when my children have been whining right across these 6 years of this phase of doing this conscious parenting and stuff, they'll say, please use your normal voice, and I'll wait for them to ask with their normal voice. Or I'll say, I'll get you the smoothie, but I'll wait until you've used your normal voice. Like, you need to use your normal voice to ask me. And I'll just wait. I won't give them anything if they're whining. There's absolutely no way they're getting anything if they're whining. And then the demands, oh gosh, my darling, my kōrero, she is, I want my drink, I want my snuggie, I want this, I want that. Demands like with a really harsh delivery, and it does not sound pleasant at all. Yeah, I just rephrase it and I'll say it how I want them to say it basically and get them to repeat it. So I'll say, can you please pass me my drink, Mum? Dad, can you please help me find my snuggie? I've lost it. And then they'll repeat it, but they'll snap out. She'll realize what she said and how she's demanded. So I haven't had to go, you're demanding, da da da, or anything like that. I've literally just said the phrase how I want her to say it. And words matter. Instead of always starting with, don't do this, don't do that, you can say, I want you to stop doing such and such. It's too loud, it's too rough, whatever. But I want you to stop is quite good. Or I want you to, or I need you to. And you can also give a reason why. Instead of don't run, you can say running's really dangerous here. I need you to stop because I don't want you to get hurt. Or please stop running, it's so slippery here. So they have a reason. It's not just you trying to control them because you're the parent. There's actually a justification for you asking what you're asking of them. And instead of saying, can you please, which I still do revert back to a little bit, you can, when you're wanting them to do something for you, it's like asking them and giving them an option, like, can you please? Well, they could say yes or no, whereas I want you to, or I need you to is more direct, and you might get more of a buy-in, or you might not. But that, yeah, I've definitely made that change to I want you to, or I need you to, which is not asking them a question like, can you? Because can you? They could say yes, they could say no. And anytime they're not carrying out requests, I sort of give two options to get it done. It might be like, you can either go hop in the bath now, it's ready, or I'm going to carry you and put you in the bath. What are you going to choose? Favoritism and sibling rivalry is really tricky. It's that whole he said, she said. If you weren't there to see it, you don't really know what's going on. So oftentimes, if that's the case, I will just group them when I'm sort of giving them a telling off or trying to get to the bottom of it. I won't single them out because I haven't witnessed it or seen who sort of started things. And often it takes two anyway. So I'll say we or team when I'm talking to them. And that just is like an all-inclusive kind of way of speaking. And unless you know it's one particular child at fault and you've seen what's going on. And so I'll just say things like, we don't do that in our house, or team, I don't allow hitting, you know that, we don't hurt others. And I think it helps to prevent that whole, that's not fair and jealousy stuff that goes on as well. And I've always explained to my kids that fairness is just pretty much impossible to achieve, and that you sometimes miss out, but sometimes you gain in other ways. There's like always some kind of balance going on where it's not actual fairness in a direct way, but that's just the way life goes. This is a huge learning thing for me, was that my two children are so different in the way of physical affection. So my daughter is very forthcoming. She will just leap on and take, claim it as hers, the physical affection, the hugs and the kisses and all that kind of thing. Whereas my son, he would never really instigate. He loves physical affection, but he won't be all forthcoming and jump all over you and claim it for himself. He is starting to more so now, but when he was very little, like 2 or 3 years old, and that disconnect had happened in our relationship, that was one big realization I had, was that he actually, even though he was okay on his own and I was all tied up with this colicky baby and doing, focus on that and my poor health and all that kind of thing, and he was kind of on the out, he wanted it, he needed it, he really, really did. But I wasn't aware of that until a later date. And then once I started being the instigator of that, it really changed his behavior and filled his cup. And so even now, I still every day have to be conscious, because he sees Charlotte as taking the limelight. He sees her as being like a kind of celebrity in that way. He's actually said that because she's so out there and so, she's funny and just real gregarious and extroverted, and he's not. He's more introverted. And so for me as a mother, having that one-to-one time with him, having that time where he can just talk endlessly to me, and being physically affectionate every day as much as possible is really important. And like lying in bed with him to read, he really loves that. So finding the things that really fill their cup. And if you have children like mine, where one just like is all over you like a rash and the other one isn't, just be sure to give that other child lots of love and attention as well. It can be hard when you get really tied up and busy with life. So for separated parents, going between houses and co-parenting can be really tricky because it's like different rules at different houses, different ways of eating, different sleep times, all sorts, so different. Trust me, I know all about it, personal experience. So communicating when they come back home to you, if they're all out of sorts and they're not their usual self, or they're tantruming or anything like that, naming their feelings, being compassionate and acknowledging and reassuring. So trying to be in a really good space in yourself, physically, emotionally, psychologically, so that you can hold space for them when they first come back home is really good. And having some sort of reset ritual, like having a bath, lying down together, playing, any sort of thing that will reconnect can help a lot in early night. And also physical activity helps a lot for us here as well. And you can just acknowledge that it's hard living between two houses and they might wish that mum and dad were still together or that kind of thing. But no matter what, mum and dad really love you and are here for you, and you can go and do the thing that reconnects. And for you yourself, let go of any attempts to control the other parent. They're going to do what they want to do. There's nothing you can do about that. So, I mean, you can try. I tried, but then I quickly came to the realization that no, and even out of spite, they may not want to, get on the same page as you. And so if that's the case, just have to let it go and do the best that you can do when they're in your care, and know that that is amazing and incredible, and that you're doing a wonderful job at doing that for them. And yeah, so long as when they're at the other parent's house, that they're safe and fed and warm, those bare minimum basics. I mean, it should be a lot more than that, but that they are well looked after and loved is really important. But any of those extras that you would prefer, you have to let that go. Step parenting, that's something that I'm just embarking on now. My new partner has 4 children, and 2 are teenagers and are quite independent and don't hang out with him as much. But the 2 younger ones, he is 50-50. They're 7 days on, 7 days off, and similar age to my children, and they're wonderful, gorgeous children. And I think if I hadn't done the work that I've been doing in this realm over the last 6 years, I probably would struggle to be so open-hearted and compassionate and relaxed around it. But it's just, honestly, I just treat them like my own children. That's how I've approached it, and it works really well. And also, before you get together with anyone, if you are a single parent, please talk seriously around your parenting styles. Make sure you're on board together and on that same level with parenting, because that's huge. When you get together as someone who's already had a family, been married, had kids, and you come together, it's so different in so many ways. You don't have all this time and space to get to know each other. It takes a bit longer, or otherwise, when you do have the time, you just go hard and go deep to get to know each other, like I have with my partner. We've really made our time together count and been very open and vulnerable in all aspects of our lives. And the parenting is huge. We had to make sure that we're on the same page with parenting, and we really are. It's awesome. We're also open to changing and growing in that realm, and so that's helpful as well. Work in progress for me, I get very big guilt about being on my phone, running my business from my phone. I enjoy my phone. I love the social interaction, the conversations I get to have with people. I love sharing on stories, but that splits my attention and makes me distracted. I am always practicing at putting my phone down, looking them in the eyes when they're talking, but I don't always do that well. And when I'm on my phone and getting distracted, I've asked my children, I say, like, I get distracted, if you really need my attention, please squeeze or tap my arm and say my name, because I'll then know, like, I really need to direct my attention to you. And that sounds terrible, but that's what works for me. The other thing is, when I know they're coming home from school, to put it away, put it in a drawer or whatever, so you can give that chunk of undivided attention first up. And I don't work, I'm not on my laptop or anything when they come home, so I can give them that undivided attention. And anytime I need to as well, leave my phone behind and go for a walk with them is really good. So they get that time, and bedtime is a really beautiful time for us as well to connect like that. Always working on something, aren't we? The teen years, I feel like now the things that I'm putting in place, I hope will help them to come to me and trust me and be open with me as teenagers. So, and when I was growing up, there were a few suicides around, and one in particular that I have in my mind was around a young man just feeling completely stuck, like he couldn't figure out the issue that was going on for him, when in fact he well and truly could have. It wasn't as bad as what he thought, but he didn't share anything, and he ended his life. And so for me now in our lives, I'm always like, how can we problem solve? How can we work this out? How can we work that out? Let's problem solve, because they'll get like, oh, I can't do this, I can't do that. I'm like, how about we da 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 da, and we problem solve, so they can see in action that they can come to me and we can figure it out together. And it actually, there are different ways to get through things, and we're not stuck. Everything's figure outable. That's a Marie Forleo, this awesome lady that I listened to a podcast years ago, and I got this, everything is figure outable, from her. And I say that to them as well, because I don't ever want them to feel stuck in any way. And I just say there's nothing that you could do that would be bad enough for me to stop loving you. I'm always here for you, so that they know they can just come to me with anything. In theory, that's my hope. Yeah, and basically there's probably nothing that they will do as teenagers that I haven't done. In your intimate relationship, the more solid you are as a couple and aligned in your parenting styles, the better. We can cultivate so much peace in our household when conflicts arise by either responding with compassion and love and understanding and curiosity, or taking space completely because it's not the time to, you aren't able to do that, but definitely by not reacting. So if you can take reaction off the table and just use those other two options, that will cultivate a lot of peace in your life. And then the calm and peace home feels safe, and it's a great foundation to rewire not only your own nervous system, but the nervous systems of your children if they have been experiencing yelling, swearing, toxicity like my family. Make time for yourselves together. Have date nights at home, or go out, or whatever you can do to try and get some time together. Make that happen. That unfortunately was not a priority for my ex-husband, and was a contributor definitely to me leaving, because I was always asking for a date or time together, and it didn't matter to him like it mattered to me. But quality time is important. Make time for yourselves apart too. So fill your cups in separate ways. Allow your partner to do things for themselves, and they need to allow for you to do things for yourself that make you a better person and fill your cup so you have more to give. Prioritize sexual and non-sexual physical connection daily. So if you're not up to any sort of physical sexual intimacy, it can be like massage or kisses, hugs, conversations, whatever it is, to connect. Try and keep things light and jovial between you as a couple. Don't get bogged down by the seriousness of life. Not any day is a given, so just try and remember that and keep things, full of laughter, have jokes, don't sweat the small stuff. Just, keep it light. Communicate with each other and be vulnerable. I've got a relationship check-in thing. If you want me to email this to you, I can. It's quite cool to go through like once a month, just to go through and see if there's any areas that you can improve upon, anything that you're feeling really good about, not so good about, whatever it is, you can talk about in a vulnerable way. And also I love the Gottman Card Decks app. That app has all kinds of questions that you can ask your partner, and there's so many different topics on there as well, and it's just fun. It can be really fun, or it can be really spicy, and it's a free app. I really enjoy that. And if you need to, consider therapy together. So if you feel like you're getting stuck on like the same thing over and over again, then a third party can be very helpful to get you working through this and breaking out through the other side, because often in a relationship it will be cyclical where something just keeps coming up, but you guys you don't have the capacity or whatever it is to work through that thing. And yeah, it's nice to free yourself from that burden, and you can do that by going to a counsellor together, and even going to a counsellor in general, like even if you're having like a little bit of a rocky patch or need some guidance, they can be very helpful as long as you get a good one. Also, if your relationship is struggling a lot and you've tried your darndest to do all kinds of things, you've been to therapy perhaps, you've tried to have your dates, make your time, physically connect, all these things. If you're trying and you feel like it's really one-sided and you're not getting anywhere and you're miserable and yeah, it's just too hard basket, then end it. You don't need to stay in any relationship that's deeply unfulfilling and with a partner who's not willing to make the changes and meet you where you need to be met. Because even though there should be acceptance and understanding in a relationship with our partners, there also needs to be a willingness to grow and a willingness to change for the better of the relationship and then of the family and the flow-on effects from there. So if that's not happening for you, then maybe it is time to leave. And that can be really, really difficult on children initially, but also they, if you're in this relationship that's struggling, they will pick up on that too. So it's like, which one are you going to choose to stay miserable in something that there's no change happening and the kids are getting impacted by that, or whether you leave and you become lighter and happier in yourself and can live a better life and be a better parent to your children. Like I personally feel like I'm an incredible parent to my children in the last 2 years, more so than any other time. So leaving my ex-husband was really helpful for me in my parenting journey too, because our house is so friggin' calm. And I didn't realize the stress I was enduring every day. The weight that lifted off my shoulders when I left was instant. And it was just, I can't even describe the feeling. And I didn't even know that I was that bogged down either. I didn't know I had that level of weight and stress daily in my life. And so getting out of that and setting up my own life with my children made me a different person and had far more ability to show up in a better way for them. Nourishing your children, so you can do this with like good nutritious food. I love giving kids heaps of fruit in all kinds of ways. I love reishi and ashwagandha as the Zen herbs, so they help that rest and digest mode. You can put them into smoothies or hot chocolates. BioRay products from iHerb have been incredible. I've been using them for 5 or 6 years, and I just find them so amazing for tantrums and for sleep. So the top 3 are those ones listed there that I've used in the past, but Happy is our main one that we will use. Daily music, singing and dancing, just keeping it fun and light with each other. And then you can do nervous system regulation practices with them as well, like making sure they are physically tired, that they're playing. You can do a practice called smell the flowers, blow out the candle, which I learned from a kindy teacher years ago, where you put your hands up and you smell the flowers and blow out the candle. Massaging your children is lovely. Tapping on them. You can even just tap one point. I did that the other night when my partner's son got up. He hopped into bed beside me, he had a nightmare. So I just tapped on his head and said a few words that I am safe, I am loved, and I am here. And I just repeated that a few times and felt his wee heart rate decrease because his heart was racing and I've had a horrible dream. And reassured that, you know, dreams are just, they're not real, that they're made up in our minds and those kinds of things. So tapping, havening is just this, which is easy for children to do. And it's really soothing. I mean, we can all do this if we feel really stressed. Bathing with Epsom salts and essential oils, another really great reset that I do when my children come home, especially if they have any bath, it's like that anyway. But when they come home from their dads, I always run a bath and get the Epsom salts and calming essential oils in there, like wild orange or lavender or something. Limiting their screens, letting them be bored, and encouraging the creativity and imaginary play. It's a really good way to nourish children and their little nervous systems. And then for yourselves, mum and dad, try to make time to do things that bring you more joy. Let that inner child go crazy and do some of the things that you didn't do, or get some of the things you wanted as a child just for fun, and just have that playfulness at the forefront of your life. And for you, I mean, there's so many different things that can regulate your nervous system, but perhaps, yeah, tapping, that's my favorite. Tapping, Shakti mat, massage, yoga, stretching, meditations, all of these things. Shaking and jiggling when you're like really heightened can be really good too. Just like jiggling your entire body instead of bouncing on your feet can be really, really helpful. Breathing deeply into your belly, taking a bath, whatever it might be for you, you're the one who can, try a few of these things out and find what works for you best. Products, reishi, ashwagandha, and jing on my website that I absolutely love. And I'm giving you all 15% off with the code thank you. So just use thank you. There's no time limit on it. It's one use per person. So thank you. That's all it is. Hopefully you remember that when it comes to your next purchase, or if you wanted to purchase any of these things that I've mentioned, you can get 15% off. Having nutritious food, really foundational, good sleep and exercise that actually really makes you sweat and breathe hard, something that pushes you a bit, that can help get rid of any pent up emotion, but it also increases those endorphins, the feel good hormones in your body increase. So that's really helpful. And for you as well, no screens at least an hour before bed, leave your phones out of the bedroom, charge them overnight in the lounge, and use an old school alarm clock if you need to use an alarm clock for whatever reason, but no phones in the bedroom. It's a big rule of mine. And this is another practice. I mean, when we started, we did that Zen kind of practice, but this one's more like a visualization of like when you're feeling some heavy feelings, or just as a nice daily practice, whatever it is, this negative stuff washing down the drain when you're in the shower. And you can even ask, like, I will do this kind of thing where I'll say, angels and spirit guides of the highest truth and compassion, please allow all negative energy to wash down the drain every time I enter the shower. So you don't have to even be conscious of it. Every now and then you can do this visualization if you've had a really hard day, a really tough time of it all washing away, and you're just rinsing it off your body. And you can ask for your spirit guides to do that for you every time you shower. And then there's this thing called your column of ascension, which is just like basically a column of light that you are grounded into. You can look more into that. There's a few meditations around that. If you want me to send you one, I can. I have got right into this with my amazing spiritual coach, Tana, from The Sacred Way. So The Sacred Way on Instagram, definitely recommend checking out her stuff. I love using mentors and coaches to better myself, and she's very spiritual based one. So this column of ascension meditation I've been right into. Otherwise, zipping yourself up into a golden light filled bubble suit to protect yourself from any dark or heavy energy. You can do that before you go anywhere where you think there might be dense energy or hard sort of stuff to navigate. Human design. Oh my gosh, I couldn't help myself but talk about human design and astrology. I just think it really helps us to understand, others better. So that could be like your intimate relationship or your friendships or your children. You do need your birth date, birth time, and place. And human design can be described as like a highly specific energetic blueprint. It's a holistic spiritual thing, and it helps you to get to know yourself more on a deeper level. And you can use mybodygraph.com or the Reiki Marco website to find out everyone's human design. And then in astrology, you can do the whole chart on astroseek.com or the cafeastrology.com. But the big three that they talk about is your sun and your moon and your rising. And the sun is like your personality and identity and how you sort of shine out into the world, how people see you out there. The moon sign is more like the soul behind your identity. It's really subconscious and it's an emotional part. So your emotionality. And so for me, having the Aries moon sign, well, my emotionality is quite explosive and like yelly and that kind of thing, which Aries is known for. So I've had to harness that and use it in other ways. And vocalizing in different ways that aren't personal attacks. And then your rising or ascendant is your social personality, and it represents your physical body and your outward style. I found finding these things out for everyone and then following Instagram accounts and podcasts and that kind of thing to increase my knowledge helped a lot. So with human design and the energy types, there are 5 energy types. And thankfully for myself and my 2 children, we're all generators. So it's easy for me because I know a lot about generators and how I show up in the world. And so I can then parent in a generator style with more ease because that's me as well. And my partner's a generator. One of his younger children is a generator and the other is a manifester. So he has a little bit of, he's the only manifester out of us 6, and he needs things tailored a little bit differently and needs a little bit more alone time. Time to himself. But yeah, let me know if you want any heads up on favorite accounts for that. And these are the resources. So I don't know if you want to take a photo of the screen, or otherwise, like I say, I'm happy to send you this slideshow if you email me. AHA Parenting is Dr. Laura Markham. She was huge for kicking this off for me. The Peaceful Parent Happy Kids and the Peaceful Parent Happy Siblings books were incredibly helpful for me on this journey. Janet Lansbury, when my babies were like quite small, a lot of baby development stuff, but also she's got helpful ways with older children too. And then these are some of the ones I follow on Instagram that have helped me, especially even now. I'll still revisit and be like, oh yeah, just like really good reminders to have this stuff pop up. The Attachment Nerd, Ali Harwood, is incredible. I really, really enjoy her content. And Raising Yourself, I found really good. And Annalise Aaron. Yeah, I mean, they're all so good. Annalise Aaron, parent coach, she's, I think she's based in Christchurch, and she as well is like a reformed, she had been that yelly, out of control parent and now has gone the other way, and does a really wonderful job with her daughter and stepchildren. And then my therapist, Kirsten Simmons, is lighten-up.org.nz. She's fantastic. She gets to the crux of issues so quickly. I think she's $120 for an hour, but that hour's not wasted. There's no faffing about. She has really strong intuition. She's really spiritual, but she also is gets to the nitty-gritty and helps unravel some of the stuff that's going on for you and propel you forward. The Mark Manson books are really good if you're just starting out on a personal growth journey and you want to learn to not sweat the small stuff so much and that kind of thing. If you're someone who's hypercritical or nitpicky, then the Mark Manson books would be a great starting point. The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck is one of the first books of his that I read when I started my journey a few years back now. And then the holistic psychologist, Nicole LaPera, she's got wonderful content on social media as well. And her book, How to Do the Work, is really good. I haven't personally read it. I've looked at snippets of it, but my friend did the whole book from cover to cover with the work in each chapter. So read the chapter, did the work, read the chapter, did the work. So committed. And it made a huge difference for her in her personal growth journey. So that was really fantastic. I thought awesome. And I just like Nicole's content, and she's got an amazing YouTube channel as well. Whoa, we made it to the end. It's a lot of content. I really can't help myself, I guess, as far as I like to go hard and go deep, and there's probably way more that I could have covered as well, but I tried my best to keep it Hannah level succinct. But yeah, parenting is such a wild ride, and it's such an experience for growth. Opportunity for growth if we choose for it to be that way. We can either be completely unconscious and do what our parents did, or you can be here on this class with me learning how to do better and how to grow as an individual and as a parent. And that's just like the best gift you could give to your children. It's so worth it. So I'll invite you guys to come off mute if you have any questions, or you can put it in the chat box, and I will answer any questions.
I've got a question just regarding, with Jimmy, how you said that you had quite a difficult time when he was younger, with rage and stuff like that. And then when you realized you reconnected, I I suppose you reconnected. It wasn't like a conversation, it was just your behaviors towards him. Was that right? More so?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
the biggest thing was literally just giving the poor boy some attention and physical contact, like
Yeah.
lying in bed when he went to sleep, because he was so easy breezy that he got left behind. He was left
Yeah.
because all my focus and attention was on this crying baby, and then my own poor physical health. So a lot of my time and attention was focused on that. And he was like this easy, just this child existing, which is horrible, like so horrible. And he had huge amounts of time with his dad. His dad, thankfully, is really a great father, and he would have 3 days off every three. So he did 3 day on, 3 day off roster, which he still does now. And so when he was home, he'd be all about Jimmy. So it's like dad was all about Jimmy, mum was all about Charlotte, kind of thing, because the crying was even too much for her father to deal with. And so I kind of left it like that. It's how it worked. It like kind of worked. And then when we were together, it was with dad at work, it was like screen, TV on, or just real, just not spending that time with him. And he was an amazing sleeper too. So like he would have a nap every day from 12 till 3 until he was like 3.5. He was incredible. But then I realized what had gone on, like I don't even know how I realized it, but it was just more about giving him the time and attention and the physical affection. And it only could happen once Charlotte came right after 6 months old. And once I started to feel better in myself, which took a lot longer. But even the fact that Charlotte needed me to lie with her to go to sleep until she was 5.5, it got to a point where for a long time there, when I would put my kids to bed, it would be me in the middle of my bed with a child on each side, and then reading to both, because Jimmy was feeling left out. And so I had this perfect sleeper. He could easily go to bed and go to sleep, but it was that feeling of like, oh, mum's all about Charlotte, and lying with Charlotte there. So ended up with both kids in the bed reading, and then once they were asleep, transfer them to their own beds. And that went on for years. And so just trying to give him the same as her as best I can, and consciously always like thinking, oh, I need to hug Jimmy. Like even now I'm like that. I'm like, oh, I need to hug Jimmy, or I need to kiss Jimmy, or I need to lie with him in bed once Charlotte's gone to sleep, because she does just take up so much time and attention. Even to this day, she steals the limelight. Like he says, she's like a celebrity. So it's really hard. And I know he's going to have hang-ups with that. But hopefully we can just communicate as we go as well. Because I say to him, oh, like I kind of say, oh, you know what she's like. She can be really, I get what you're saying, like just reassuring and empathizing with him, and reassuring that I love him to bits just as much as I love her, and that kind of thing ongoing, so that hopefully it becomes less of an issue as we get older, as he gets older and she gets older. They've got great friendship. He doesn't despise her because of it at this point, but you just don't know what's going to happen. And we all have to go on our own journey for ourselves as adults. He's like all of our kids, even if we do the most incredible work with being conscious, they're going to have the issues that they have to work through too. So I just hope that he can, if he has any issues left over, work through it.
Yeah, I think like my eldest, she's 8, Lawrence, and ever since her sister was born, who is also a celebrity and absolutely cruisy kid, but happy-go-lucky and funny. Ever since she was born, Florence has been jealous, and it's come up in therapy that she finds it really hard being the eldest child. So I think it's a similar thing, really. And she's missed out on me in the last few years because I've had, 2 more kids, and they take out everything. She just wants me to lie in bed and fall asleep with her, but I've got 2 screaming or crazy kids downstairs that I have to go and sort out. So I do find it hard to because she's so easy, she sleeps well, she's always been easy. I find it really hard to give her that time. She doesn't demand it, but she really, the tantrums happen, because of it.
yeah, it all has to go somewhere, right? Like, those feelings and stuff. And that's the same thing. And since I've been more conscious about it, even in the last 2 years, we've had way less outbursts from Jimmy, and he's probably more emotionally mature as well because he's 9 now. But I guess you could ask her like what she would want from you and see about how to make that happen, or even taking her out of school for a day once a month to just have you and her time, and
Yeah.
ask her to choose whatever she wants to do that day and give her that undivided attention for the day, as opposed to trying to maybe do it around to other children that are demanding as a daily thing, like that, like I'm saying, 10 minutes one-to-one each day. Well,
yeah. Okay, yeah, no, that's good. Thank you.
I had a question in regards to, like, I'm sound quite similar to you with I've been through the rage thing, especially when the kids were smaller, more so with my 2 older ones than the 4 now. But it's like I kind of feel like I've kind of swung to I haven't got enough boundaries set up. I don't know, and it's kind of figuring out where to start with that, because I feel like we're in that kind of that threat mode. It's like, if you don't do that, and I don't like that. But how advice on how to move from basically going from that to setting boundaries. Do you sit with them and or sit together as parents and work out what we want and then sit with them? I mean, they're between 9 and 5, the 4 young ones. Yeah.
Excuse me. I think you could look at together as a family setting rules, like family rules, but just like outlining the main things that matter, that underpin your values as a family that you want to uphold. If there's some main issues that keep popping out. But it is really hard when you've been like doing that yelly, out of control kind of parenting, and then you swing the other way and you're just like a bit wishy-washy and let things slide too much, and then they walk all over you and that kind of thing. It's really, really tricky. And so I think, like getting together with your partner in the first instance and talking about whatever's most difficult, and just going with those things as far as like how can we make this better, what can we do, especially as far as warnings go, or chances. Only one, they get that one chance, and then you must follow through no matter how tired you are or stressed you are or whatever it is on the consequence. That I found super, super hard. Not easy at all, because of the all the emotions and the blow up and the tantrums that go on as part of that. Yes, and using those lines, I won't let you, and we don't, in this home we don't do this, or whatever, like grouping it as well, so like you don't always single out unless you have to, and then saying like I won't let you, whatever it is. In our family, one of our rules that's up on the wall says that this is not okay, and you're doing it, and then having some kind of repercussion or consequence that suits, that you and your partner have decided on. You could also look and do the other way of like positive reinforcement with sticker charts or that kind of thing as well. That can be helpful for some children. I think it's quite individual as well, but you just don't want to add more stress overall to yourself yet. I think initially it is. I think until the children get to know that actually, mum means business now and this is what's expected of me. So I think the initial phase is really tricky. And then once you get past that and they have that expectation, then it can get easier, depending on the child, because different temperaments and things.
Yeah, I've got 4 different ones really. A couple more than others.
I was wondering about maybe on like a Friday afternoon having like treat afternoon, or doing something after school on a Friday, and you know, having those boundaries in place if you're not, you know, whatever you miss out on treat day on Friday or whatever, you know, like that's something that you aim for, and you make it really fun or whatever, and then they know that if they're not going to kind of, I don't know, stick within the boundaries, then they're going to miss out. I find that with the same as Charlotte, Florence is the same. She's a Sagittarius and she's crazy and very hard to parent. And not a lot of threats work. She just goes, I don't care.
Yeah, that's the same.
It's really hard.
The threats didn't work. Yeah.
It's so hard. Like, or even like, oh, you're going to miss out. Yeah, maybe. I think, like you said, once they've been through it and they've missed out, they won't do it again. They won't want to miss out again. So yeah, maybe I just have to go through that once.
Yeah. Sometimes the missing out thing didn't work either because of the whole don't give a fuck thing. So it's really hard because sometimes it will work. If it's something that you know really matters to them or whatever, then yeah, it might have enough pull. You just have to, I just think you have to be willing to give things a go. And as long as you're coming from the right place and
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. The consequences are the bit that I get hard. I get it mixed up with kind of, if you know, if you don't do this, you're not going to get that. I feel like that's, yeah, it's just my dialogue, it's the way you say it.
I personally think so. Like, obviously it's technically still a threat, I guess, but it's not delivered in a threatening way. It's literally like, just this is what happens in our family. If you can't do this, then this is just what happens.
So then it becomes more of a boundary than a threat in a way, doesn't it? Like it's not.
Yeah, and some people might disagree with that, but that's just what I've come to the conclusion of. And even though it's been really hard over the years, and like I say, I and myself have felt really good in the last 2 years since leaving my husband, but Charlotte has only just come right for when probably end of last year, even for getting ready for school and things. And I think it's age as well, because I've been quite consistent, although I was a bit wishy-washy on the boundaries to start off with because I had so much going on. But once I sort of found myself and got into that and could hold boundaries, because I did rely on my ex-husband a lot, and he had fear-based parenting, and like he could just like make one vocalization and they'd just like totally behave, and he never understood why they wouldn't with me. Anyway, I think it's a real common thing for mothers versus fathers. And yeah, so even though it was like quite chaotic at times when I left, and then I found myself and felt grounded, and my nervous system was soothed again, and I could deal with her stuff more. It still kept going, like I was dealing with a lot of emotional outbursts and tantrums and defiance. Some of these parenting gurus don't even use that term, but and it was super, super challenging. But our home was actually really calm for the most part. So it actually was just a practice of her rewiring her nervous system to feel calm and safe, and like I had her back. And I'll say that to her too, I've got your back, to start de-escalating and becoming okay in herself and not so reactive. But also the age thing, she's 7.5 now, so you'd hope that there's some emotional maturity coming through, and she's had a wonderful year at school so far too, like no run-ins with the teachers, which is incredible.
That's the thing about Florence, is she's perfect at school, and the teachers rave about her, and she gets everything's perfect. She comes home and just
lets go on you,
swears, hits, and like her worst. I've said things like, look, if you don't stop, I'm gonna have to video it and send it to your teacher. It's like a worst nightmare having a teacher see her bad behavior. So I don't know if that's a good thing to do, but
you just feel so out of control in those circumstances, like you just don't know what else to do.
Yeah, you don't. Yeah. So Yeah.
I remove myself when she's hitting me or kicking me, and then I come back and the door's locked.
Oh.
I'm like pacing the driveway here. But Jimmy will always unlock it for me.
Oh my gosh. Far out. That sounds similar. Yeah.
Yeah, super challenging. I think I have one in the chat box. Oh, got to go. That's all good. All right. Anything else before we finish up? I know it's gone on a while.
No, thank you, Hannah. That was good.
I just wanted to say, like, I'm just astounded at how amazing your knowledge and like just your parenting style. Just, you are amazing.
Oh,
It's
thank
blowing
you.
my mind how like incredibly strong you are, and yeah, and where you've come from and where you are now. It's so cool to see, so inspiring.
Oh, thank you so much, Rachel. It's really kind of you to say that, because sometimes you, like I say, you just don't know if you're doing the right thing. You don't know if you're getting anywhere. It's really hard to get any decent feedback from anyone. It's really,
But yeah, no, honestly, I just got so much out of that. I was taking notes the whole time. It looked like I was on my phone. I've got like a whole bunch of notes there. So, and I know I can always look at this, but it's good just to have my phone right there, like, look at the highlights. So yeah, thank you so much.
thank you. Thanks for your time.
You're welcome. That's been great.
Okay. See you, ladies.
Thank you.